Good morning, my name is Maria Hebu. Welcome to this presentation on the 1st century BC Britain. Over the next few minutes, we will delve into several key points from this period. We will examine how the tribes in Britain interacted with mainland Europe through trade, the initial impact of Julius Caesar's arrival and the emergence of early social and political changes, including the adoption of coinage and the growing influence of the Roman world. Let's see at 100 BC tribal Britain. Imagine Britain around 100 years BC. This island was inhabited by various tribes, each with their own culture and way of life. But what's fascinating is that long before the arrival of the famous Roman legions, these tribes had already established active trade relationships with their neighbors across the sea. Archaeological evidence, such as ancient shipwrecks discovered on the seabed, silently testifies to the far reach of their trade. One of the most sought after commodities from Britain was tin, abundant in the regions of Cornwall and Devon. This metal was crucial in Europe as the primary component for making bronze, an alloy vital for various purposes from tools to weapons. The bustling trading hub of that time was Hengistbury Hut in Dorset. It was here that the exchange of local goods like iron, copper, and silver took place for luxury items brought from Italy, the region of gold, and even from more distant lands. Just picture it. Wine, sweet figs, perhaps shimmering glassware, sophisticated tools, and deadly weapons, all being traded at this very spot. Wine, in particular, was transported in uniquely shaped ceramic jars, pointed at the bottom, called aphorae. The sheer number of aphorae found at Hengistbury for exceeds the discoveries at all other prehistoric sites in southern England combined, highlighting the importance of this commodity in their interaction. Let's see at 72 BC, metal out wine. In 28 years later, around 72 BC, this pattern of trade not only persisted but became even more deeply rooted. Britain continued to be an important supplier of natural resources to mainland Europe, with tin remaining its flagship export. The demand for tin for bronze production in Europe remained high, and Britain met that need. In return, the flow of luxury goods from Europe to Britain did not cease. Wine, with its exotic flavors and perhaps considered a status symbol, remained one of the most sought after imports. Hengistbury had continued to play its central role as a hub of exchange, a meeting point for Americans from various regions. Archaeology continues to provide astonishing evidence of how organized trade was during this period, with the discovery of various imported artifacts at British sites and British artifacts at European sites. This demonstrates the existence of a rather complex economic network long before the arrival of significant Roman influence. So the next is 55 and 54 BC, Julius Caesar writes. Then British history recorded the arrival of the first major power from across the sea, the Romans under the leadership of Julius Caesar in 55 and 54 BC. Caesar, an ambitious general and shrewd politician, had his own reason for attacking Britain. He claimed that the British tribes were aiding his enemies in Gaul, which was then in the process of being conquered by Rome. His first attack in 55 BC did not go according to plan. Fierce resistance from the British warriors along the coastline and storms that damaged the Roman ships forced Caesar to quickly withdraw his force back to Gaul. However, Caesar was not easily deterred. In the following year, 54 BC, he returned with a much larger force, bringing approximately 25,000 soldiers. The Roman legions successfully landed in Kant, and despite the valiant resistance from the British tribes led by a chieftain named Cassivellaunus, as well as their distinctive chariot weaver tactics, Caesar managed to penetrate the territory as far as Hertfordshire. Some British tribal leaders eventually surrendered and chose to ally with Rome, allowing Caesar to claim a victory, at least politically. Nevertheless, Caesar realized that conquering Britain was no easy task, and after about 2 months on the island, he withdrew his forces. Britain remained outside the control of the Roman Empire for nearly another century. These raids were a pivotal moment, marking the first significant contact between Britain and the great power of Rome, and paving the way for more profound interaction in the future. So the next is 47 BC, Caesar describes Britain. Several years after his two brief expeditions to Britain, around 47 BC, Julius Caesar took the time to write down his observation about the island and its inhabitants. This account became one of the oldest surviving written description of Britain from the perspective of a foreign figure who had direct experience, albeit limited to the southeastern region. In contrast to the fantastical accounts of earlier Greek writers, Kaiser attempted to provide a more factual description. Although it was still influenced by his Roman perspective and political goals, he described the Britons as fierce and brave warriors with unique physical customs, such as shaving parts of their bodies and dyeing them blue with woad, yet keeping long hair and mustaches. He also noted peculiar habits regarding their diet and treatment of certain animals. Kaiser considered that tribes in the southeast, whom he believed had recently migrated from Gaul, as the most civilized Britons due to their cultural proximity to Gaul. However, he also made claims that were later proven inaccurate by archaeology regarding the inland tribes who he said did not cultivate crops. Kaiser's writings are invaluable as they offer us a glimpse into how early Romans understood and portrayed British society, even with the inherent limitations and biases that may have been present. Next is 35 BC first British coins out of Julius Caesar noted the use of bronze or iron rings as a form of early currency in Britain. The development of a more advanced monetary system on the island continued. Gold and silver coins had actually been known in other parts of Europe for centuries and began to reach Britain through trade, mainly from Gaul, around 150 BC. However, a significant turning point occurred around 35 BC following instruction Kaiser expedition. The tribal rulers in the southern and eastern regions of Britain began to adopt the idea of minting their own coins. They started producing coins by striking engraved dice onto blanks of precious metals such as gold, silver, or other alloys. What's even more significant is that some of these early British coins even featured the names of the tribal rulers who ordered them to be made. This not only indicates progression in their economic system but also became a symbol of increasing political power and identity among the tribal leaders. One of the earliest examples is the coinage produced for Commius, a figure who initially allied with Caesar but later became an enemy of Rome and ruled in the Hampshire and West Sussex region. The emergence of local coinage was a crucial step in the evolution of British society, facilitating more complex trade and strengthening the authority of the rulers. So the last one is 10 BC, the influence of Rome towards the end of the first century BC, around 10 BC. Although Britain remained an independent territory outside the direct control of Roman Empire, the influence of Rome was already strongly felt in various aspects of life on the island. The Roman Empire had expanded its reach to the coast of Gaul, which was geographically very close to Britain, creating more intense and continuous interaction. British tribal rulers, often involved in internal disputes and conflicts, began to seek political and even military support from Rome to strengthen their position or to overcome their enemies. Some rulers who were defeated in conflict or faced threats from other tribes even fled to Roman territory as refugees. Furthermore, we see the adoption of Roman titles. Some British rulers began to use the title Rex, meaning king in Latin, perhaps to enhance their status in the eyes of their own people and in their interaction with the Roman world, which was perceived as more advanced. Roman influence also extended to the economic and cultural spheres. Trade between Britain and the Roman Empire increased significantly, and Roman luxury goods became highly valued status symbols among the British elite. Examples include the archaeological finds in wealthy burials such as the Laxden tumulus in Colchester. There's even a possibility that some Britons began to adapt fashionable Roman clothing, indicating a degree of cultural assimilation. Despite the lack of direct military conquest, this period was an important time of transition where Roman influence gradually permeated the political, economic, and cultural life of Britain, paving the way of life of Britain paving the way for more dramatic interaction in the following century. So that's all about the first century. Thank you.